Well, I think I should start now.
Right.
Thank you, everyone, for joining me. This is Eric Bohren. I lead our ISV partnerships globally at Freshworks, and I'm very pleased to have a discussion today with Joe Jorczak from Yext, one of our great partners. We're actually also a customer too, so we've got a couple areas of investment with Yext, and we're going to be talking about self-service customer support, ways to modernize your customer support um, process. And Joe, why don't you just quickly introduce yourself, and then I'll dive into some thought-provoking questions for the
Yeah,
group.
thank you, Eric, and thank you so much for having me on. Great to connect with everybody and really explore. I think is such an interesting and critical and timely topic. So my background, I've been in the technology world for a long, long time. I don't want to date myself, but I've seen all of the kind of trends and transitions and kind of the pendulum swinging back and forth. Most recently, I came to um, Yext by way of Zendesk, but prior to that, Medallia, prior to that, Oracle and IBM. So I've seen large organizations and smaller ones really think about how do you create innovative ways to approach the customer experience challenge. I've done work around journey mapping, customer support, and customer relationship management platforms. But my background started in a consulting world. So I really take a consultative approach, and I think about, what are the as is, the to be, and what's the gap that you need to traverse to get to that future state. What are all the challenges you have around people, process, and technology? Sometimes I think we over-index on the technology piece, but so much of the change happens in the people and the process side of things. And I think it's really critical for support leaders and customer experience leaders to take that holistic approach. But yeah, so and here at Yext, I am our head of industry for service and support solutions. So really general manager of our strategy and go-to-market with respect to how to help companies leverage the power of AI search to deliver better outcomes for both customers, whether it's B2B or B2C, as well as for the internal teams and for the agents and the employees that support them.
That's great. And we at Freshworks, we have our own capabilities, and we partner with folks like Yext to really take us to the next level in terms of enterprise grade solutions that can be added onto our platform seamlessly with integration and working closely with folks like Joe on customer success. So I'm excited to explore some of the use cases and in situations where customers might use Yext as an add-on to our platform. So to kind of kick things off, just a high level question, Joe. In today's digital first world, why is it so important to have good self-service support?
Yeah, I mean, there's two sides to that question, and it's such an important one. So one, it's expectations. Customers want to self-serve. We know that 81% of customers want to be able to resolve issues on their own, and we can provide some of the background on the research where that comes from. We do our own first-party research, and we've also, of course, worked with a lot of partners who do great analysis of the market. But we know that the vast majority of people, they don't want to have to pick up the phone or wait, 30 minutes or 3 hours to get an issue resolved. They want to just be able to answer things really with the resources that they know are available and be able to just move about their day. So one is just meeting that customer expectation. But two, it's also that by providing a better self-service experience, it really makes your teams, the brand support team and customer experience teams, more efficient and effective in the work that they need to do. If you have a lot of those one-touch or more simple issues being resolved via self-service, that means that that's additional capacity that your teams have to be able to address the more challenging issues, and the higher value topics. So it's really critical for both that customer view and for the support operations teams to be able to have this capability.
And we all know in today's world too that if you have a great customer touch on support,
Mhm.
you kind of you make your way towards having a customer for life, and that can mean cross sell or upsell opportunities. So it kind of comes back around to revenue. It's not just about customer support, it's really holistically the customer 360 experience, right?
100%. Yeah. And we think about, the likelihood of somebody to want to continue to do business with you. So building that loyalty and lifetime value. If you have a great experience, and sometimes it's even just an effortless experience, it doesn't necessarily have to be surprise and delight, but just make it easy. You're more likely to stick with that brand and continue to do business with them. And we know that 75% of people will pay more for a good experience. And so it's really critical when you think about the economic value of providing a great experience that you do that. I think we all know from our own personal experiences, if there's a brand that we're working with, a company that is delivering frankly, a poor service experience, you either you suffer through it because you might not have a choice, but if you do have a choice, you will absolutely look elsewhere. And so I think that's a critical piece for support leaders to understand that, the role that they play is not just in the break fix, or, we're just going to do the bare minimum to resolve an issue. It really does have an impact on overall corporate strategy and success.
Cool. And so, as you look at self-service customer support through Yext, why is a unified or federated search so important to what companies usually have on an internal basis, from stuff that is just kind of off the shelf?
Yeah, there are so many different pieces of information, so many different resources and locations where information lives. And we talked a lot in the past, 5, 10 years about omni-channel experiences. And organizations, I think, really embraced that. And I think they thought, hey, this is great. We want to provide more and more channels. And I think that is an important piece because different consumers will have different needs at different points of their journey. But a critical part is that across each of those channels, making sure that the information individuals need is available. In some cases, I've had my own experience where I've tried to do something either through a chat or through a messaging experience, and they have to get redirected to a different team because the information that's necessary isn't available. And so for us, it's really around bringing together all of that disparate background information. A lot of it may live in a standard health center. That could be a knowledge base or just kind of the place on the site where, you collect a lot of that help content. But invariably, content lives all over. You have information that lives in a learning management system. It might be like a university or tutorials. You have information that lives in YouTube. You could also have content that lives in transactional systems. And so the hard part is that I don't want to have it be my responsibility to try to figure out where in the organization does this information live? Who do I need to talk to get it? It's really great with being able to bring Yext plus Freshdesk together and integrate all of that background knowledge. So no matter where it lives, consumers and users are able to access that information to be able to resolve their questions.
So you guys can break down kind of knowledge-based silos, if you will,
That's
right?
right.
And is there a way that the algorithm works to serve up the most popular articles or the ones that are the most useful to people over time, so that a lot of companies have thousands of help articles. Maybe some of them are old, some of them are duplicate. How does that all
Mhm.
work?
Yeah, that's a great question. I get it all the time when I talk to support leaders and content management leaders. And they'll say like, we have so much information. A lot of it's outdated. It's not cleaned up. We want to kind of try to work on all of that before we launch something like an AI search capability. And my guidance is, that's an ongoing challenge and task. And so it's one thing that you'll probably never be done doing. One of the things that's really amazing about the new capabilities that we have are through the application of AI and machine learning and natural language processing. We're able to understand not only all the content that you have and really be able to read through all of it, be able to understand all the different pieces of information and the related pieces of information across different content types that could be relevant. But we're allowing users to ask those questions in natural language, capture their responses, and be able to deliver up the information that has the most relevance. And then from there, we're able to track which content is actually driving the most value. And so the ability to enable natural language, the ability to see using the algorithms, what content is being surfaced and what's being used and what's actually resolving issues. You can elevate that content and those content types. So they're going to be surfacing up higher in the search results. But you can also then use that as an indicator for where do you have content gaps? Where do you have resource and knowledge gaps? And so where do you need to redirect your effort? Because so many support leaders think, well, I need to clean up all of this content, or I need to clean up the entire library. And the answer is really no, you don't. There's probably a subset of content that's going to be driving the most value. You should really focus there and then pick out the other pieces in the long tail.
Yeah, it's the 80-20 rule, right? 20% of your
100%.
articles
Yeah,
are going to satisfy 80% of the questions.
that's right.
Um, so when we look at AI, natural language processing, first you got to have accurate kind of um, uh, analysis of it in terms of keywords, word grouping, sentiment, and intent. Can you give some examples of how then it helps get the right answer to the right person, so that
Yeah.
they how the machine understands the intent versus just picking up on the keywords, which is the base
Yeah.
layer?
It's a great point. And I think one of the things that we often see when you come to a lot of the brands that you might work with in the viewers who are here today, if you go check out, your favorite brand or the company that you tend to work with or the applications that you have in your environment, and you try out that little magnifying glass or that search box, most likely it's operating on really a very old keyword based technology. And this has been around for a long time, and Google got its start in the keyword based domain. And so you think about TF-IDF and some of the other underlying technologies like Lucene based. These were all kind of where the internet and where search got started. But the technology has so rapidly evolved, and there are still a lot of applications, whether they're open source like Solar and things like that, that are still being used. And a lot of times it's like, technology teams or application teams just dropped that functionality in and they just kind of forgot about it. So it truly was a set it and forget it. In the meantime, so much innovation has happened in the search world. And obviously that's been pioneered by folks like Google. The idea of a knowledge graph really came into play in the early 2001. I think it was Tim Berners-Lee talked about it. So you might recognize that name, kind of the erstwhile father of the internet. And so he talked about the idea of a knowledge graph. It was really popularly picked up and commercialized by Google in the 2012 timeframe. If you go to the search on Google knowledge graph and look at their white paper, they published one, and Google shares a lot of their research, but you have absolutely experienced the power of a knowledge graph when you go to places like Amazon and Netflix and Google, because that's how they organize their information. Key thing, and we're getting a little bit of the details about search technologies, but I think it's an important step to understand, is the knowledge graph and graph databases are a way to not only organize all of your discrete pieces of information, the entities, but also the relationships between them. And the hard part for a lot of search engines, if I ask a question, find a pediatrician in New York City who speaks Spanish and takes Cigna. So most search engines will carve that up into keywords. And that's where you end up getting hundreds or thousands of results, because the keywords don't understand that, pediatrician, well, I may not use that word in my help documentation. I might use the word provider or doctor. So it's that understanding of the semantics, right? What's the underlying meaning of that question? It also doesn't understand that New York is not new in New York. It's actually a city and a state. And so the ability to have search technology that understands all of those nuances is really critical. So you mentioned before, it's understanding intent. It's understanding sometimes sentiment. What is the urgency of this question? So that's all the capability that we've built into the platform, and really what sets Yext apart. And why we're so excited to bring this capability out to support teams, because so many of the existing native search technologies are just really not up to the task. And so the ability to understand, all of when we call things like extractive QA and semantic search, keyword based is okay. It can be there as almost as a fallback. But we're able to build in much more sophisticated search algorithms and technologies into the platform. But ultimately, it's about making it simple for the user. We want it to be a simple, intuitive, pleasing result where you ask a question in natural language and you just get an answer back almost as if you're talking to a friend.
And so, if I can't find that answer that I'm looking for, how does the interplay work between search and human assist, if you've got a support agent?
Yeah, it's in many cases the content may not live there. There are some organizations who they'll get questions that they've never encountered before, and the content may not exist. It's important to be able to capture context, and so through the search experiences, you can track and be able to manage what has somebody already looked at previously. So when you do have that handoff to the agent assisted experience, which is a critical step, and I think most organizations they need to focus on both the agent assisted and the self service. Really as a consistent, intentional experience. You want that to be a seamless handoff. You want the context and the information that was presented in the self-service to carry over to the agent. So the agent's not repeating the same information, but then also they understand, hey, these are the kinds of questions that the person was asking. I know now that the platform can serve up the right content to me, or I can at least know what was already presented and that it wasn't sufficient. So, having the platform be able to track all of that, look at the search history, whether you're authenticated or not logged in, or if you have logged in and we're able to assign all of that search history to your profile, hugely powerful because it then allows you to track context and the engagement over time.
And let's talk about the transformation at one of our joint customers, Lulu.
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of walk us through what the problem was and what was the result?
Yeah, so Lulu Press is a really fascinating company, and they've been great partners for both of us. So talking with Lulu Press, they've been working with Freshdesk, and they have a great installation. Had it up, I think, for a little over a year or so, a year and a half. And working with the team over there, Marcus Freeman and others, and they were realizing that they wanted to really supercharge that search experience, and they thought, hey, we've got more content that lives in more places, and they wanted to be able to really efficiently. Because they didn't have a big development team. They really are focused on operating in a very lean environment. They've got great support leaders, but they wanted to be able to do things where they didn't have to bring in consultants or bring in a dev team. So they looked at the marketplace and they selected Yext, and they really liked the integration that we have with Freshdesk. And so it was a really simple way to deploy the solution. And for them, it was equally important to be not only to implement easily, but it's easy to maintain and enhance. And easy for users to just pick up right away. It was a very intuitive experience. So they've deployed it on their help center, which has been really effective in terms of I wouldn't say deflecting tickets, because I think there's in the support world that kind of has a negative connotation. It's not about pushing users off. It's really about letting users find the information they want on their own. So that way, they don't have to submit that case or that ticket. They're able to just get that information resolved, so they can resolve it. And then when they do have to talk to a support agent, that they're able to, really drill down on the problem at hand. And then on the flip side, the support teams are able to identify, hey, we weren't able to resolve this challenge in self-service. These are the things that we need to work on in terms of improving our process and our resources.
Yeah, it's night and day with some of the still experiences I have with IVRs, like from the IRS or something, where
That's
they
right.
really are trying to just bury you in some IVR chain and not have you talk to anybody.
It's amazing. There are some support leaders that still have that as a strategy. They want to push people off, and they'll put up roadblocks. And so sometimes it's I would say a less thoughtful approach to customer engagement. But if you put a place like a chatbot, where you have to use the chatbot before you can go through anything else, because it's almost like it's another version of the IVR, like you described. And for some cases, if it's done thoughtfully, it can be effective. But I'm very much a believer in, if you provide the resources in a really easy to consume way, and you give the option of who wants to use what, and that's where we see chatbots and search really working better together. Because certain people have a preference. They like to use the search experience or they prefer the bot experience. Give them both, but make sure they're both equally effective, and that you can do a simple handoff between them when necessary.
Yeah, cool. And the other thing that you kind of alluded to, but I wanted to highlight is at Lulu, they were able to install it with a non-technical program manager effectively. And the other cool thing I really like is visually, it really uplifts kind of the look and feel to the end customer. But what I like is that Yext is the wizard behind the curtain. So there's nothing Yext kind of in there, not powered by Yext, not a different look and feel. It makes the customer support and the web kind of masters of Lulu look really good, because again, it's just super powering what they have.
Yeah,
So
100%.
cool. What else? What else do you think our audience? We're going to wrap up here in a few minutes, and there may be some live questions. But what else is top of mind for you right now, and for our audience?
Yeah, I think there's so many topics that come up around, where should I invest my incremental dollar? I know that the environment, the macroeconomic environment is shifting. I think people are a little bit nervous about, is there a recession looming? Are we already in one? And the idea that, okay, now I've got to hunker down and really control, my spend and where I invest. But on the flip side of that, as we've seen through the pandemic, and I think as we're going to see through any kind of economic kind of swing of the pendulum, expectations from customers don't change. If anything, we still expect more and more. And we want it done faster and faster. And so I think the critical piece is really looking at the foundation elements, right? So you have content, you have really powerful platforms to be able to engage, and it's really putting those together in a very logical way. I'm a huge believer that creating better self-service for employees and for agents that support them is a critical step. And I think for organizations that are thinking about, where do I put that dollar of investment? Where do I really want to make sure that I'm continuing to enhance the customer experience in light of all of the other economic pressures I might be facing? It's one not to shy away from. I wouldn't say I would almost say it's not so much a nice to have, it's a must have at this point.
Yeah, I would completely agree. So, folks, thanks for joining us for this thoughtful discussion. Head over to our Deliver Delight resource page. The link is shared in the comments, and check out the interviews I've done with our other tech partners, including Yext, and highlighting how our joint solutions work together to power your business. In addition, you can download the Yext integration for Freshworks from the Freshworks marketplace. On the Yext website, there's also a landing page for Freshworks that has a lot of great content and examples. And come visit us if you want to supersize your self-service customer support efforts.
Awesome.
Thanks so
Thank you,
much,
Aaron.
Joe.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Pleasure to join you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.